Hello everyone, it is Lauren. Welcome back to Take Action Tuesday. Today we are going to continue our discussion from last week when we discussed grid size. And today we're going to specifically talk about the practice of masking vocabulary, specifically how to do it and some pros and cons on doing it. So let's dive in. All right, masking vocabulary, also known as hiding vocabulary, is a practice we see often used in the AAC field. And this is when you take specific locations on the device and hide them. You don't delete them, they're not gone forever. You just change their visibility setting so that they're no longer available. So it might start looking something like this. And then after hiding vocabulary, it looks something like this. So what systems allow you to do this? Most of them do, and I'm going to take you and show you how you can do it in some of the top systems, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons to actually hiding vocabulary. So first, let's look at Proloquo. It has a feature called progressive language, so you can find it here. You're going to go under Settings, Vocabulary, and then you're going to toggle on progressive language, and it actually gives you the steps and different sizes you can use. Now let's look at LAMP. In their system, it is called Vocabulary Builder. And you can go in and add vocabulary or use pre-made lists to support hiding locations. This is also available in their Unity software on their dedicated devices. So it's going to look something like this. You can see it here under Menu and Vocabulary Builder. And right here you can see you can type different words in, you can check different boxes, and then when you apply it, it shows the hidden locations on the screen. Next, in TouchChat, you have the ability to hide individual locations. There is no specific feature in TouchChat that supports mass amounts of hiding, so it is going to be a little more laborsome in TouchChat. But it's still very simple to do. So what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to go into the menu. You're going to select Edit Page. You're going to go into Menu again, and then you're going to select Hide Mode. And once you select Hide Mode, you could touch any button on this page, and it will hide that button. You're going to then have to press Done to go to the next set of pages. In TD Snap, on the motor planning page set, you have something called Vocabulary Filter. And they have some pre-programmed options already available for you, or you can create your own. It really works very similar to that vocabulary builder that was on LAMP. So what you do is you select the words you want to be visible. What I like about the vocabulary filter here is it's very easy to toggle on and off. And you will notice that Snap Core First page set does not have the ability to do the vocabulary filter. You can go in and individually select locations or select a group of buttons similar to how you do in TouchChat and go into the button settings and change that visibility. So you can see that it's relatively easy to do within a system. So when should you even consider it, and why does it need to be a very thoughtful decision? And let's start with the latter there. Why does it need to be a thoughtful decision? Because hiding vocabulary is limiting individuals' access to vocabulary. So this means that they will not have access to specific words they may actually need in communication interactions. You, as the person hiding them, are deciding what vocabulary they do and do not have access to. And whenever possible, I really discourage that from happening because it limits them. Who knows what they want to say, and we need to give them that autonomy to say those things. Something else I often see happen is teams hide locations because the support team is overwhelmed. I've heard a lot of times parents and professionals go in and say, you know what, 84 locations is a lot and I just can't comprehend it, so I'm going to go ahead and hide all of these, and we're going to start with this. I want you to remember, it is about the AAC user. It is not about you and your needs. It's about what the AAC user needs. When might it be helpful? There are some instances where the number of locations is just a little too overwhelming at first, visually overstimulating, and there's just too many options. I will note here, when this is the case, I usually try appearance changes first. And by that, I mean I try to change the button border, or I make the locations more grid space between the two, or I change the colors of them. I try some different appearance based things before I hide locations. What could also support hiding locations is it can be really helpful for direct instruction. So if you are doing a lesson in school and you really want to teach some very specific vocabulary, you do have the opportunity to hide the locations that might not be relevant to that activity. Again, though, think about that. Just because you don't think it's relevant to that activity doesn't mean that student won't think it's relevant. This is where those quick toggle on and off features would be more beneficial. If you're going to use it for direct instruction, getting it back to the highest grid size as soon as possible would be really helpful. So if you're going to hide vocabulary, they still need access to all of the communication functions. Because here's the deal. What I often see is we start with more, all done, and want. Okay, well, they have no way to tell you they need help. They have no way to tell you they are happy. They have no way to tell you they don't like this. And you need to be able to give that opportunity and give that robust vocabulary. So the goal should always be to provide at least the basics of communication. And if you are going to hide, your goal is to grow that vocabulary back as soon as possible. So again, there can be benefits to hiding, and I'm going to give you a quick story on how I've seen it benefit kids, and then I'm also going to give you the quick story on how I've seen it not benefit kids. So to start, I had an autistic student who was 7 years old. They were relatively new to AAC. They had started the process with another SLP on an extremely limited number of locations. They were communicating basic requesting. Basically, they could independently access want and more, and there were probably maybe 10 other vocabulary terms available. When he came to me, we opened it all up and we really worked on modeling without expectation. We added some phrases, and after about 6 weeks, we were noticing that he wasn't as engaged as we had hoped. We were pouring everything into using that motivating vocabulary, those motivating activities, and it just wasn't clicking. So we tried a few things visually. We added some space, we changed the background color, and it helped a little bit, but you could still tell that something wasn't quite right. So what we did was we limited some vocabulary. It was incredibly strategic. I took time and really thought about it. And when I say limited vocabulary, he was using LAMP on an 84. We maybe took off 15 words. The next day, his mom texted me to tell me that he used the device independently all day at school. He explored it. He used it to communicate. And that just slight difference in changing some of that visibility made a huge difference for him in accessing it. We are currently in the process of adding more vocabulary, and he's growing language with both AAC and verbal speech. And we do make a point to add in new vocabulary and highlight new vocabulary each week that I see him. So the flip side, I have a new 3-year-old that just went through an AAC evaluation process with me. And he was showing a little bit of interest during modeling, but was most interested in the magnet letter on the wall. So we, through our evaluation, decided to go with a 60 grid on touch chat word power. And we continued to do a lot of modeling without expectation. And I really want to note that he wasn't using the device himself yet at this point. We were still really just providing that robust modeling and making it motivating. And I could have limited the locations, and I could have created structured tasks where he liked the magnet tiles on the wall, so I could have kept a letter and he could have had to press more, and then he could have put it up there. That really compliance-based thing that we talked about a few weeks ago. But that's not really how I roll. If you've been here long enough, you know that. So after about 3 weeks of our sessions, we he independently reached over and pressed drink. We ran to get it for him. And I just want you to think, what would have happened if I would have hid that word? Drink only happens at like a pretty specific time during classroom routine. So maybe that might not have been the biggest priority vocabulary word. What if I would have taken that off? He would have had no way to tell us that he needed that. So this is just all to say you need to be really thoughtful about it. I think there's a reason device companies created that feature. There's a reason that it can support language development to an extent. However, it does create serious implications for access to vocabulary. So be very thoughtful about these decisions. And this week, take a few minutes to evaluate your setup and see what you are doing. And is it best for the individual? Is it time to start adding more vocabulary in? Is hiding a couple words going to make a really big difference for that kid? And this can be a process. You can try it and see what happens and then make an executive decision, clinical decision based on what happens. So I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you next week.